Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, wherever you're tuning in from. I'm super excited for this dialogue that we're about to get into with Wellness Yogini. Just waiting to see when Shana is gonna hop on. How are you doing? And I hope the connection is steady. Welcome, welcome. Hi, welcome. We're just waiting for Shana to hop on here. While we wait, let me know where you are coming in from and how you are. I see Shana has sent a request, and we're hoping the connection stays good or gets good. So, yay!
Hey!
Yay! I am so excited to have you here, Shana. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being open for it. I'm just adjusting the volume. You know, it's such a beautiful evening that I was like, I need to go out and be in the sunlight and just have all the things. We got some candles going here. We have some incense burning.
I love the lighting. It looks nice out there.
It's uncharacteristically warm here, it's like, oh, okay, climate change, but it's so beautiful. So anyway, you know, the fact that we're so far up north, it's like you just take the sunny days as they come and enjoy them.
Awesome.
How are you? How are things over there in North Carolina?
It's good. It's busy. It's hot. But
Yeah.
busy. Yeah, I'm happy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, yeah, lots of hearts over there. Okay, so we have we can go as long as we want. So we have about an hour, and I'm sure we're gonna get into some really juicy topics here. But before we do that, what I like to do, Shane, in the beginning is just really ground whatever conversations and whatever dialogue and whatever productive insight and any kind of beneficial exchange we have. I really like to ground it in the times. You know, we are in unprecedented times with COVID-19. No, none of us, I think, have lived through a global pandemic. So these are unprecedented, difficult, heavy, challenging times for all of us, albeit in very different ways, depending on our personal situations and social locations, etc. So we're all experiencing it, but in very different ways. And just grounding the fact that we've always, as humans, had strife and struggle, but certainly the systemic structural oppression and systemic violence that disproportionately targets Black and Brown lives. So I just want to speak to that because that's obviously part of what we're going to get into. And as well, I just wanted to take a moment to name the work that Lovett Action for Humanity is doing in terms of raising funds to get the Black migrant workers who are stuck in Lebanon. And so obviously this natural, I mean, not natural, but this human catastrophe has affected all folks in that part of the world. And I just want to speak to the way systemic oppression works. It has really hit harder and harsher these Black migrant African workers. So I just want to speak to that. And folks, if you could please go to Action for Humanity and take action, donate where you can, sign the petitions to get these Gambian women home, write to the consulate and the embassies. It takes just a little bit of effort, just a little bit of your time. And especially for yoga and spiritual folks, this is how we can really live and embody our yamas and niyamas. So I just wanted to speak to that. And if you don't mind, if we can just take just 3 conscious inhales and exhales. And if the breath is not available for you, you can just feel grounded and anchored in your seat. So let's just have a moment of all that. And as you are ready, Shana, thank you so much for coming on here. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to introduce yourself, however that may be for you, and just how you are feeling and doing here and now.
So hi guys, I'm Shanna Small, and here on IG I am wellness_yogini. My joy and passion right now is exploring the intersection between yoga and social justice. I am a yoga teacher of about 15 years, a practitioner of about 20 years. I have been practicing Ashtanga yoga for about 20 years, but I also have other loves, and I mix that with other loves, and I'm growing up and evolving as a human being, and I look forward to this conversation with you guys.
Thank you. So, Shana, I just really wanted to, I'm so grateful for this opportunity, and we're just going to dive right into it, because you're in the US, I'm in Europe, and I really came to know of you and your work and just what you stand for and how you show up both in the world and in the Ashtanga scene. I think it was 2019 when I read your blog piece. I believe it was on your blog, Ashtanga Yoga Project, where you just spoke up about a yoga summit that was marketed as being diverse when there was not a single non-white person or presenter there. And at that moment, I just felt like my body, like, yes, finally, I'm not the only one. Somebody has spoken up about this. And that moment was quite pivotal for me. And the fact that then I learned further that you were involved in Ashtanga yoga, I mean, then it was just like following the the breadcrumbs to the and it was just such a empowering moment to know that I was not alone in what I had been feeling and sensing throughout being a part of this community. So I'm just wondering if you could maybe speak to what was going on for you at the time that made you write about it and speak up about it.
So at the time, I was experiencing an awakening for myself. I've been involved in the yoga industrial complex for a while.
That's what it is.
Yeah, and I've been involved in a way that silenced my voice, and I really didn't know that because my voice has been silenced all my life. So like trauma, after a while, those types of things start to feel really normal and like okay and what you're supposed to do. But I was awakening to this idea that it was no longer okay. And so while I was going through this, I saw that summit, and it like hit me in my gut. Like it really did. Like I felt something just drop inside of me when I saw all the pictures of these, white yoga teachers with homogenous opinions doing a summit. And so when I put all that out, the person did respond to me and say what they were talking about was not diversity in the way that we use it today to mean like diversity of colors or whatever, that they weren't talking that way. They were talking about the diversity in the opinions. But the thing is, you can't have a diversity in opinions either without having diversity in colors as well. And the reality is that the people that were even on that board didn't really have diverse opinions. They all really felt the same about what was going on in Ashtanga yoga at the time. And it wasn't, it's fine to have a little board discussion, but it's like, let's not act like it was diverse. Because at the end, the person was like, oh, well, these are just my friends. We all got together. Well, you shouldn't have said it was diverse. You shouldn't have used that word, no matter if you were talking about opinions or the type of people that were represented, because you can't have diversity without different colors, because the lived experience is different.
That's right. That's right.
It's going to be different. So you just can't use the word at all, because what's coming out your mouth is just not going to be diverse if you don't have people of color and people from all walks of life on your panel.
That's right. No, and I so resonate with what you said about being in the scene and doing the practice and normalizing being silenced, because I so resonate with that, and that has been my experience as well. And so, and I also just really like, I just took your a couple weeks ago, you're making Ashtanga accessible. So when we're talking about diversity, I mean, I just really love that you're really like walking the walk about this. We're not just talking about diversity in terms of like having a couple like black and brown faces in the mix and, oh, look, see, now we're diverse. You're really, and if you go on your Instagram, you're really like advocating for how to make Ashtanga yoga accessible, not only for folks of different body sizes, more abundantly sized folks, but also like older folks who have different abilities. And I loved the course you took. I learned so much. So can you maybe speak to that, like what your experience and what your education has involved around the accessibility of Ashtanga yoga?
So first of all, I'd like to say the reason I did that is because the change has to start with us. Like throwing the ball in other people's court and expecting them to make the changes we think should happen, it doesn't work. It doesn't happen. And I know a lot of Ashtanga teachers are like, Ashtanga is very accessible, but then all they post on their own feed is them with their leg behind their head, them in headstands. Like that's all they post. It's like, well, it doesn't mean anything if we can't see it, if it's not represented. So right. Then the argument is like, well, we don't have anybody in our community. And then things like, what's wrong with that? Because we all know that the average human being walking on the planet cannot throw their leg behind their head. So then that means if you don't have someone who can't do that type of thing in your Mysore program, that your Mysore program is not representative of the freaking human race in general. That somehow you've created some program that if you don't have like all types of bodies, it means you've created this program full of very able-bodied people. And so then that's something that as the yoga teacher or the head of the program, you need to look at and be like, okay, why are these type of people the only ones that are coming to me? Why are other bodies coming to me? And so for me, I was like, okay, I've been practicing for a long time. I can do the craziness, but I was like, that's not what it's about right now. It's just not what it's about right now. It's not about that. So I'm going to get on here and I am going to show different ways of doing things in the body. And so as far as my training, I took a wonderful course, and I suggest this course to everybody with Diane Bundy and Amber Carnes, Yoga for All. They release it a few times a year. I think they might have another one coming up in the fall. It's not one of those courses like that are always online and that you can like just go take. And I really, really, really highly recommend it. It's vinyasa based, but it doesn't matter because teaching accessibility honestly is about imagination. Right? It's imagination. That's all it is. Like, and what happens is we put ourselves in this little box that yoga is supposed to look a certain way, Ashtanga is supposed to look a certain way, and then our imagination like dies. So when I took that course, my eyes just opened to all the different ways that things could look in a body. And really, it was a fun process taking that course and thinking about different ways to do the poses, because that's what Amber and Diane, you know, wanted us to do. They were like, hey, you know, after you take this little module, get creative, see how you can use this, how you can use it in your body. And so I really, really enjoyed that process and doing it. And it honestly makes yoga fun when you can be truly creative with it. But it was a long journey for me. I totally 100% drank the Kool-Aid of how Ashtanga was supposed to be. I drank it all the way. I know there's probably some people listening here about, who is this girl? I don't know this teacher. This ain't the girl that I studied with who was telling me I had to do it this way and it needed to be done this way. And that was bullshit. And this is bullshit. I've changed. I put down the Kool-Aid of detox from the Kool-Aid.
And no, I mean, me too. And I think that's like how it's been transmitted to us. And this is like to say, like, if whoever is like really like doing their full series and into several series practice 6 days a week, if that's where you're at, like, we're not trying to take that away from you and say like, no, but it's like at some point, somehow things shift. And for me, it's like I've made the conscious decision, exactly like you talked about, Shanna, like I could make the effort of, you know, feeling like I needed to maintain a certain level in the series and the sequences. I could. It would take an extraordinary amount of time and effort that probably would make my family life and my kids feel like mom is not so present for us, because then like the practice is the first thing. And so it's like a conscious decision I've made, like I could do that, and I feel for my purposes in how I wish to show up in the world, in what I wish to represent for folks who are interested in the practice, or maybe think that even the practice is not for them and like trying to attract them. I feel like that would be like putting my attention in a way that is not necessarily like so interesting and beneficial and productive. And I love that you said that like the practice got fun and you were really thinking like different ways to do the poses. And this is where I feel like the sequence and the structure of Ashtanga yoga is so kind of like, wow, like we have this like container, and then like let's like kind of play and do like play with it, and like what can we create in order to meet the people where they are at. And I'm just going to speak from my experience this morning when I had a private session. This was with some folks who are just starting out. We had taken a break, like a summer break, and they were doing other things over the summer, living their life, enjoying it. And so I couldn't like go like, okay, let's do our stand salutations and because I would lose them. And then they would be like, actually, this isn't quite for me. So in the class myself, I was like, okay, so now upward facing dog and downward facing dog, it's too much for them. So then I did the cat and the cow, and they loved it. And I was just like, wow, like, and they were just like, okay. So then beginning to ask questions like, okay, so now, and it was like, so it breaks my heart when people say, you know, Ashtanga, I tried it, it's not for me, it's too hard, I'm not good enough for it. It breaks my heart because it really does not have to be that way.
It does not. And with teachers, like teachers out there that are listening to this or might get access to this, like the question is like, why are you really teaching? Like, why are you really teaching? And a lot of times I think it's really just to pump up people's own egos. Because it's like, who are you teaching to and why are you teaching? So if you are claiming that you're trying to make it accessible, you're trying to reach everybody, then what are you actually doing that's doing that? Because a lot of times it just is self-aggrandizement. Like so many times on Instagram, I see people like, oh, beginner 6-week Ashtanga course, and the picture is a picture of them doing something from second series. I'm like, what? Why did you pick that picture for a course that's supposed to be for beginners? Like
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
ask
Yeah.
yourself why you felt that was the picture you need to take. Maybe it wasn't about the beginners at all. Maybe it was about
Mm,
you and your own
mm,
self-aggrandizement. The fact that you had to
mm,
pick that picture to represent a course,
mm,
and
mm.
oppose this unattainable. It's not even about the students. So it's like,
Yeah.
why are we teaching? I had to really get, why am I here? Why am I teaching? And am I reaching the people that I
Right.
want to teach? And I,
Right.
wasn't really.
And even like if you think just the marketing of it, it's like, are you knowing your audience? Are you very crystal clear on who you are trying to like attract by posting a certain picture? And so, yeah, I love that you said that. It's just the specificity of knowing who you are trying to reach and why makes actually pretty good business sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, and it'll just be able-bodied people, right? So that's the only type of person who would be interested in a beginner course that might
Mm,
include a handstand in it, is
mm,
somebody who already is like, sees themselves as
yeah.
being really able, but well, maybe not
Yeah.
see themselves, but have that in them. They're able-bodied. Like a person who
Mm,
is like, out of breath when they walk, someone who feels like they can't touch their toes, they're just going to see that and be like, well, I'm not signing up for that. Right. And
mm,
then your signups are just a whole bunch of able-bodied people just
mm,
continuing that same process
mm,
over and over
mm.
again, and then being like, well, I don't know why other people don't sign up for my course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I'm super excited to see like how, what we talked about in, first of all, having another Ashtanga yoga accessible course. That's like what I'm sending out to the universe and to Miami Life Center, and how we can normalize it and integrate it. So, and we talked a little bit about this in the course, like, so, okay, maybe we'll have like kind of like a accessible Ashtanga yoga for the specific populations of folks who are like, no, Ashtanga yoga is not for me because I'm not represented. And then over time, how we can normalize this demographic into the mainstream population. So then it's just like, this is normal. This is what like a Mysore room looks like. This is who the Ashtanga yoga practitioners are. So I'm really excited to see how that can come about.
Mm-hmm.
And so another reason why I admire you, Shana, and wanted to have you on is as I've followed your work and just kind of seen your journey, I'm also noticing you get like more and more kind of aligned with the intersectionality of social justice and yoga, which is something similar I'm doing on my end over here in Finland. And so yeah, what has sort of led you towards this intersection?
As I started to wake up, I watched your, not watched, listened to your interview with Kino, and we were very similar in that we were kind of like, we were in this kind of community, and because we've kind of like been raised in a way of how to walk in communities that we don't really look like we've been trained, we know how to like fit in and stuff like that. I too had kind of like, yeah, there's no Black people here, but kind of ignored it
Yeah.
year after year.
Yeah.
Ignore it. It's going to change. Ignore it. And it just got to a point where I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. It just I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I also got free. I'm not blaming this on anybody in particular, but I felt like I had to conform in order to be cool within the places that I was walking and the places I was teaching. And so I made a decision that I was never going to stay in spaces where I felt like I could not speak, that I could not use my voice. And then as I exited those spaces, and my eyes started opening and everything started opening, I was like, I can't ignore this anymore. This needs to be spoken to. And I'm going to do it. And so I just started studying. Like, I didn't have terminology. And that's another thing I related to you on when you were talking to keto. I did not have terminology. I did not have words. It was so buried within me. I didn't have a way to talk about any of this. So I had to step back, take a breath, and actually, you know, start to study and start to listen and start to read and start to process my own feelings and my own trauma and the things that happened to me within the yoga world, in order to eventually come to a place where I have some language. And then once I felt I had a little bit of language, that's when I just started to talk about it. And I'm still learning and growing, and I'll make mistakes, and I'll use language that's not right and not appropriate, and then I'll change it, and then I'll learn. But I'm not gonna stop talking about what needs to be talked about, what needs to change in this world that we're in.
I hear that. I hear that so completely. And it really is like, you know, because it's a lived experience for us. But once we have language and vocabulary and terminology, it's like, oh, okay. And then it places it within the context of this construct in which we are all, either with consent or without consent, participating in. And so I'm so curious, because when I started to get very vocal about racism in yoga spaces, people looked at me like I had like 3 legs coming out of my ears. Like, how dare you? What are you doing? Like destroying our bliss, and this is not yogic, and this kind of thing. How do you kind of process and relate to like what the culture, dominant culture, by the way, deems as yogic shanti and versus making noise and ruining the peace and, you know, doing this thing? So how do you kind of sit with that?
So yoga is an active process. It has always been an active process. Like the second book of the Yoga Sutras starts with Kriya Yoga, which is the yoga of action. When you read the Bhagavad Gita, you know, Krishna talks about all these different ways of yoga, but that book is very much about action. Even, you know, in the first book of the Yoga Sutras, which is, you know, a little more esoteric, it's like, potentially is giving you all these different ways to practice. He says practice in non-attachment, and then lists all these different ways that you can practice. Like yoga has always been active. When you look at, you know, Gandhi, it was active. You know, it was active. So yoga and the process of yoga is an active process. And so dismantling racism and dismantling oppression within the yogic system has to be an active process. It has to be. So in order for something to be active, you first have to admit that there's a problem, right? You know, it's like in any, you know, process you go through for healing, you know, the first step is always
you gotta name the thing.
You gotta name it. You gotta name that thing. And so that's what we're doing right now. A lot of people, we're naming it. We're putting it out there. Yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, you feel like it's interrupting your bliss. But while you were blissed out, somebody else is over here in pain. They're suffering. They're silenced. They're not getting what they need from the yogic practice. They're not being supported while you're over here blissed out. And that's not what yoga is about. Oneness. When we talk about oneness sees all. So oneness holds the person who's not being heard, who's being silenced, who's not seeing themselves. That person is there within that oneness. Usually when we think about oneness, we're like only talking about the privileges, the privileged people. Let's only look at this part of it. But no. So if there's one person who's not being heard, that means you're not being heard. Right? That's what oneness is. If there's one person who yoga is not accessible to me, that means it's not accessible to you, right? We're one, right? We're all having this experience, right? So it's like, let's go there with it. Instead of I'm blissed out, they're not blissed out, fuck that. It's like, you know, it's like the Bodhisattva thing where it's like, well, I'm not, you know, going to leave this earth, or I'm not going to stop coming to this earth till everyone is enlightened. That's what oneness is about. It's not, well, I'm enlightened, I'm all good.
Yeah. Screw the rest of you. And I mean, and it goes into like the very, you know, when people are saying we are one and we are this, then it's like put your action where your mouth is, because if you really like embodied and believe that, then it wouldn't be a problem that we're talking about these things. It would not, because you realize that so long as like folks are silenced and left out and not feeling welcome and okay, then I'm also not. So you just said a whole lot of like wisdom there, and I love it. And I also really love your the way you bring the Yoga Sutras into this. And it just came to the top of my mind. I think it's you posted on anti-racism work as a practice, and I think you used was it Yoga Sutra 114 about how practice needs to be done over a long period of time consistently with devotion and no interruption. And then you said that that's the same thing with anti-racism work. And I'm just gonna say, like, anti-racism work is yoga work. There is no different. It's like that is your practice as well, and how you don't just do like, okay, well, I just signed that petition and I donated this, so now I'm done and don't have to think about it or hear about it or be bothered anymore because I did my part. It's done. I'm good. But it's actually like an intentional commitment day to day to abolish these things that we're talking about. So if you could just like unpack like what that Yoga Sutra 114 kind of like, how that informs your work both on and off the mat.
Yeah. So it's always funny how yoga practitioners understand that things take work when it's things that they want to do, right? Like when it comes to asana, they totally understand that I've got to study, I've got to practice, I've got to try over and over again. I got to fall, get myself back up. It takes years. We totally understand that. But then when it comes to something that's uncomfortable, then it's like, oh, we just want to put a black square one time and be done with it, right? It's like, well, look at this like you look at that handstand, right? Look at it like you look at it like you look at Marichiyasana D, right? I'm not going to be stuck at Marichiyasana D. I'm getting past this Marichiyasana D. What do I got to do? I got to practice. I got to take this workshop. Whatever it is, you did everything you could, I did to get past like Marichiyasana D. We understand that. But then when it comes to something like anti-racism, it's like, oh, well, y'all are so negative, right?
Yeah.
So like verse 114 tells us what an established practice is. So Patanjali starts the Yoga Sutras off by telling us, okay, what the process of yoga is supposed to do. It's supposed to stop the cessations of the fluctuations of our mind. Why? Because if we don't stop it, we start to think we are our thoughts. And when we start to think we are our thoughts, we suffer, right? So then he lists some thoughts to look out for. And then he's like, okay, when these thoughts come up, this is what you got to do. Practice or non-attachment, or both. Practice, not attachment. Practice, not attachment. And then he says, okay, of these, effort towards steadiness of mind is practice. Effort. That's
right.
That's the word. Effort is the practice. Effort towards steadiness of mind is practice. And then he's like, and that effort does not become stable. It's not entrenched. It's not really like the foundation is not laid until you have done this for a long time without stopping, and you've done it with earnestness. That is what's going to get this practice really steady, right? And so it's like the same thing with anything in our life that we practice, right? So if we're saying we're practicing anti-racism, then the same thing goes for that. Okay, I got to do this for a long time. I got to practice this. So what do? I go get information, I study, figure out ways to speak this. When I see it, I practice by speaking out. I write, I practice, I put it out there, I imbibe this, and then I'm devoted to it. Meaning like one time is not enough. that it's inside of me. It's something I'm devoted to, something that I want to see change in the world, something that I want to do. And that is the foundation for all practice. So anti-racism is a practice, just like our yoga is a practice. So we want to apply the same things to our anti-racism and making changes in the world that we apply to getting past Marichiasana D.
No, I hear that. That was so beautifully said. And I honestly don't think so I came into yoga first, and I'm with intention and conviction operating through this anti-oppression lens in as many ways as I have awareness of. How has your yoga practice, how have the insights, how has the lived embodied experience of doing the asana, doing the meditation, doing the pranayama, how does this inform and sustain and support the anti-oppression work? Because it can get heavy. It's not like something you just like wake up and choose to do one day. Like this requires a tremendous amount of resilience and strength and tenderness and vulnerability as well. So I would really just, if you, however you wish to share, like how your yoga practice sustains you.
So I think when you're doing a lot of heavy work, rest is really important. Because when you're drained, you're not thinking clearly, and there needs to be the ability to sit clearly with who you are when you're doing this type of work, and to really clearly see what it is that you're doing in the world, how you're feeding into the system, and how you're helping folks and yourself to break away from the system. And to be able to see things clearly, you have to be clear. And you know, this is kind of off subject, but one of the mind control methods that cults use when people want to keep you into control is they keep you really, really, really freaking tired and working all the time so that you don't have time to think. So rest is really important. So when I'm going through a really heavy time in my life, I'm searching for ways to rest. So my yoga practice is not about doing the biggest and the baddest and the craziest, because I know all that sucks energy from me. And I want
Yeah. So you said it sucks energy from you.
It sucks energy from me. So I want to be able to, I want to get on my mat and let it be something that feeds me. And I get on my mat in the morning. So if I do this crazy practice and then I'm exhausted for the rest of the day, then I'm not thinking clearly. I'm not able to question my thoughts, question how I walk in the world. So what I do on my mat now is, like, honestly, I set a timer. I set a timer for an hour. And what I get through in that hour is what I get through in that hour. And then after that, I sit and meditate. Like, that's where I'm at now. It's like because this asana is a support right now, because I have other ways of yoga is my whole life, put it like that. So I question my thoughts and I study it all the time, all day long. So this asana is supporting that. So I set my thing for an hour and I get on my mat, and whatever series I'm working on, I just start. And when that thing goes off, I stop and I close that thing out and I do some meditation and I'm done, because right now I've got to guard my energy for the work that I'm trying to do in this world, because that's where I'm at. And honestly, that's what the yoga practice is supposed to do. There's this thing called the ashrama dharmas. And basically over time, your yoga practice is shifting and changing, but we're like in an arrested development stage in the world of yoga. It's like we start practicing asana and we think that's the be all end all, and we never make any shifts. That's not where we're supposed to stop. That's not the end. That's not where we're supposed to stop, but that's where people are stopping. And that's why you've got these huge mega egos, because that asana is just feeding that ego, and we're never working on questioning that ego. Where so yeah, so now I just set my timer. I do what I'm gonna do, and then I chill.
Oh my goodness, ditto to everything you said. We got a lot. As you were speaking, I think there was a lot of people feeling validated, and it was resonating with folks because we got a whole bunch of hearts. This ashrama dharma that you brought up is so key and so crucial, and we do forget that because again, like we are operating, I mean, there's the ashtanga, there's the yoga practice which you've been speaking about, there's the philosophy, there's the indigenous wisdom which takes into account the fact that there are different things you need to be doing with your time on this earth, and it's gonna change. And then there's the yoga industrial complex, which is in the grip of whiteness and capitalism, and then it's like, you got to get that like very seductive looking yoga pose in that thin white able body in order to attract the folks. So I think it's important to make the distinction that there are like two kind of elements at play here. And I feel so much the same way. It's like if I were to really just like focus my time and energies on perfecting poses, I almost feel like it would be polishing the neuroses that I'm trying to kind of reduce from my ballet training and from my dance training, which was actually quite traumatizing for me. And again, like in the beginning, that's why I came to yoga, because I was used to structure, I was used to discipline. I didn't necessarily like it, and I was definitely like, what is this, like in the beginning. But then it spoke to me because it's something I understood. But if it was something I was trying to do now with a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old and busy family life and all this, like, again, the purpose of, it just I wouldn't be happy. And so I'm going to have to try the timer thing.
Yeah.
Because I got the journaling I need to do. I have to like work and write and like understand like what is going on and just like how I'm dealing with the heaviness at this time. And so here to that. And just the beauty that comes when you do move through your body and you do access these like internal energy movements and the kind of like clarity and calm you can embody. But again, it's like a dose of medicine. You don't want to take too much, and you don't want to skip taking the medicine you need, right? It's strong medicine. Right. So we have about 15 minutes, and so I just wanted to see if anyone has any questions. I know a question was up earlier and now I've missed it. So anything you want to ask Shana, let's take advantage. And so, we talk, and it's important to name the thing and talk about the issues that we have and all these things. How about what you dream for? What your vision is? What are you trying to create? Like, what in your mind's eye do you wish, and what are you trying to birth?
Oh, my Lord.
Because I've been thinking a lot. I've been sitting a lot with like, I'm now clear on what I don't want. I'm now clear on what I don't want. And so I'm just trying to make a whole lot of space for like what I want. Like, what is it that you want? So for example, for me, I want us and Kira and to have and Laruga to have a like Black women retreat somewhere, maybe Jamaica, and just like have all the things for us. Like, that's what I'm trying to birth in my mind's eye. So what is it you're trying to create and dream and imagine and manifest in world, in life in general? It doesn't just have to be in your
many things. I want to see the yoga world move from a spirit of co-creation. This whole top down, and it's not working. It's not healthy. And what I'm saying is, and don't get this twisted. Some people think that that means, oh, you're not for parampara, or you're not for learning from teachers, right? So I always love the GPS example. Like, you're always going to need a GPS because the GPS is going to get you quicker, right?
Yeah.
But we're not like worshiping the GPS and bowing down to it. And I don't have a special place in my house for Waze or anything like that. You know, I defer to it when I need the knowledge. But other than that, it's like this co-creative space where we're all benefiting and helping each other, and it's not there to maintain some hierarchy, but through the fact that everybody is getting fed, then it thrives.
Yes.
So I would love to see a system where everybody's getting fed, so that everybody can thrive. There's enough food, yogic food, there's enough money, and maybe not money's not the word, but there's enough
abundance
out there for everybody. There's enough out there for everybody. Yes.
Yes, and we hear, hi, Deepika, it's nice to have you here. Deepika says, yes, communities, not hierarchy. And I just want to say, in this like not perfect, but in this like world in which we are having our retreat in Jamaica, I also want to have communities with my South Asian sisters. Shout out to Jaisal and Tejal, who are doing amazing work. I took their course, Act Against Appropriation. That's where we met Deepika. And so having the conversation among Black and Brown folk on how to co-create community, that is absolutely where it's at. Everybody's welcome, by the way. I'm not excluding everyone, but just know that there's going to be like rules and etiquette, and like, you got to know like how to come with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I love that. And the co-creation is so key. And so how do you, like on a practical level, how are we seeing co-creation happen in something that has been so kind of rooted and transmitted within hierarchy? Like how does that actually look like for you?
So for me, it looks like all of us having the hard and tough conversations, right? Because we can't wait for the people up top to have these conversations and to change, because it's working for them. For the people that's at the top, this is working for them.
Yeah,
they don't want it to change.
They're the ones, they have what they think it's like. They have all there is to lose, even though it's not losing. In fact, it's gaining. But we can't wait for the top down.
We can't wait for them. And I have respect for Ma Parampara, the people who brought this to me, and I acknowledge the Joyce family and what they've brought to the world and how it's affected my life in a positive way. And I acknowledge all that. But at the same time, holding that, so you have to hold both things. You got to hold all realities. So I'll hold that, but I also hold reality that this top-down system that they don't want to look at and are not looking at is not healthy. So I think it's just going to have to be us on the ground, shifting it and sharing the load and conversating and building community. And it's not going to be easy. There's going to be people who are going to be like, well, what are you doing? You're trying to take it from the South Asian community and all that, which is not the case. It's not the case. Oh, somebody said something here. I want to read it. What does it says? Go ahead.
Seems like the process for authorization of teachers is fundamentally inequitable. What do you think about a fund for Black students to go to Mysore?
So inequitable in what way, if you can clarify that? Are you talking about that there's not a lot of Black teachers that are authorized or certified? I think it's because the way that the structure, if that's what you're talking about, the way the structure is set up, it's rough to be able to take 1 to 2 months off. If you practice with 1 to 2 months off from your job.
Yeah.
Most people, especially in the West, in America, we don't get we don't get like a month off or 3 weeks or anything like that. We don't get that. So number one, even if you have the funds, taking that much time off of work is crazy. And then, you know, for a lot of people of color, because of the, you know, 400 years of racism and the systemic oppression, we're not financially in a place where our, you know, more privileged brothers and sisters find themselves in. So we just can't get over there. And I do think that Sherrod would authorize and certify more Black people if they were going over there. And then the thing is, you have to go over there like 3 times. Right? So you're leaving your job for 3 years in a row for 2 months. Or 1 or 2 months. It's insane. Most people can't do that. But yeah, if you want to do a fund to send Black students to Mysore and they want to go, I mean, that's great. It would result in more Black and brown people getting authorized, because there would be, you know, more of them, more there, and more to look at and whatever. But yeah, but I do think the whole system needs to be restructured in some way.
Totally. And the bar is set so incredibly high, only super privileged can go. Absolutely. That's spot on, Jessie. And it's been privilege talking to privilege. And this is what like Ashtanga yoga really needs to get very honest about, is like, there is no reason why Ashtanga yoga can't benefit incarcerated folks. It can't be taught in juvenile detention halls. It can't be taught in places where folks would really benefit from having this structure and this system and these tools to like self-regulate. There is no reason why it cannot serve folks, but it's just that the culture around it has been one, like we've been talking about, of just like privilege and the most kind of protected and the most served of these structures and systems in place. So it's like not even on the radar. And it's just, for me, it's like, it's a lack of imagination and a lack of dreaming and a lack of community care. And not just the community that looks like you and has the same zip code as you and makes the same living more or less as you, but like people across lines of difference. There is no reason why Ashtanga yoga can't be an example of what community care looks like. It's just, again, going back to the imagination and the dreaming and what are our values? We talk about yamas and niyamas, and for me, it's always felt like such an abstract thing. Like, oh, how lovely. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Yay, how lovely. Oh, what a good feeling I have after I chant that. But what are you actually like doing to like make it a reality? You know what I'm saying? And so, like Bell Hooks says, like, love is never simply just a feeling, it's an action. And so I feel like, and again, I'm totally like a part of this. I was drinking the Kool-Aid. I was very much a participant in this. It was just like enjoying the feeling of these beautiful aspirational mantras and not doing a thing to make it a lived reality. You know what I'm saying? And that's just whack.
I want to share this story.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, I want to share this story. Well, it's not really a story, but a feeling. I was really sad when I went to Mysore because I knew that the chances of me coming back, like I waited like 16 years to be able to go financially. I remember reading your IG. Yeah, and I was sad because, you know, people were like, well, you know, you have to come more than once in order to have a relationship with him. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't. Like, that's something I can do. Yeah. Like, that was so sad that it's like, I'm here for 2 months. And this person who I desperately at the time wanted to be my teacher was not trying to build a relationship with me within the 2 months that I had to be there, because I didn't know if I would be able to come back. Versus Saraswati. When Saraswati came to America and I went to Charlottesville to practice with her, oh my God, after practices, they were like, Saraswati is going to be, you know, at this public place at this time. Y'all come on out. And she'd just be sitting out there at a table in a little shopping area. And you sit down, you talk and chat. They had a little house party thing. You went over there, Saraswati sitting in the living room and the lazy boy. And like, she would be just standing outside after practice, just standing there. Accessible, just being there, really wanting to hang out and chat. and get to know you and who you were. And it felt so beautiful. So it's like, it can be different because she was like 70 something years old when she came, and she was still like making herself available every single day. She went to Yogaville with us, and she walked around Yogaville, and we sat with her, and it was beautiful. And we talked about crazy stuff like how many saris she had and cooking and like it was like she was really trying to like, and kids, you know, trying to get to know us and have this relationship. And I was like, wow. So it can be different. It can.
And I mean, and essentially that's, you know, the simplicity and the humility. Is this not the, you know, what a yogi, a practitioner, is that not what they embody? You know what I'm saying? I'm glad you had that experience, that like closeness and whatnot. And again, it's just like going back to like the values and the just the idea of community care.
Yeah.
Shana, this has been awesome.
It has.
Can I just say that? Can I just say I love you? I love I love the space you hold. I love just the light you're shining and bringing. I'm so inspired by you. I learned so much from you, and I'm just really looking forward to, you know, learning more from you, and hopefully one day collaborating together in this like, in this brave new world, co-creating something together. And yeah, I just feel so enriched knowing that you are over there holding space in Ashtanga yoga. It gives me inspiration and strength also to keep holding it down.
Thank you for having me. I love this conversation. I always love when I talk to you. I love reading your stuff, listening to your interviews. So yeah, this is wonderful.
Thank you, Shana.
Thank
All right,
you.
well, hey, take care. Lots of love, and thank you everybody for joining.
Thank you, everybody.
Please follow Wellness Yogini. She has an amazing blog, Ashtanga Yoga Project. She writes beautifully there. If you want to go deep into the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, she's offering courses. She's offering stuff as well on Instagram. But if you're able, please go invest in her expertise. And thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Bye. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.